He says, I'm going to give you something. He said, here's a sack that if anything gets to bothering you, just say whickety-whack into this sack. And said he'll stuff right down in there. And directly he is a-watching, and down come 6 black devils swinging down through the scuttle hole, they called, and had a sword apiece. They was at him with them swords, and he was a-jumping around there, and that log cabin a-shaking, and so with the sack over in the corner, he jumped over and grabbed it, and he said, whickety-whack. He said, devils come down in this sack.
The broadest Appalachian accents still linger up here, but a modified version has now spread far beyond these hills. As the Scots-Irish, footloose and restless as ever, moved on down in the early 1800s to lead the westward expansion of the American frontier. But as they traveled down the continent's rivers, their broad accents were slowly leveled out.
The Scotch-Irish moved on from the mountains and began moving down the valleys and rivers into the Trans-Appalachian West. So this accent gets an early start and spreads very quickly down the Ohio Valley and even down the Mississippi.
By the middle of the last century, the Appalachian accent had spread westwards across the continent. It had leaped the mighty Mississippi and the Ozark Mountains and crossed the plains to California. Since the Second World War, its influence and prestige have been growing stronger throughout the new Southwest.
The accent based on the Scotch-Irish people, the Midland accent, the Appalachian accent, in its generalized form as it spreads into the Western territories, has become one of the major dialects, one of the major accents of American English. Lately, the power, the economic power, and the number of speakers in the territory covered by this accent begun to increase greatly. This is the accent of the large portion of America known as the Sun Belt that has been gaining in power and prestige ever since World War II at a very rapid rate. Country music uses this accent, and many of the early performers, the most prominent performers, are from the dialect area, especially from Appalachia. But performers who want to sound like country musicians have to learn to imitate the accent, whether they come from there or not. So they have to learn to sound at least convincing enough to pass in their music for country speakers.
Well, I pulled out of Pittsburgh, heading down the eastern seaboard. I got my diesel wound up, and she's going like never before. There's a speed zone ahead, all right. I don't see a cop in sight. 6 days on the road, and we're gonna make it home tonight.
Yeah, how does it look behind you? Have you seen any bears back there anywhere in front of you?
You hear the accent all over the middle American area, but it's especially associated with truck drivers and with Citizens Band radio, too.
Wayne and Reba Maroney are a husband and wife trucking team who drive their rig down the freeways and highways of America.
Reba's got a more southern accent than I do. I was born in Louisville, Kentucky, and I got more or less that Mason-Dixon line north and south accent.
Truckers like Wayne love to use personalized CB call signs.
Well, different drivers use different handles. My handle will be Red Hot Pepper. My wife's handle is something special. We have other man and wife teams, Southwind, Little Breeze. Frosty and Mimi, that's a man and wife team. Double R, Barbie Doll. You just use alias names, you know, something short that you can remember.
Well, my rig's a little old, but that doesn't mean she's slow. There's a flame from a stack and the smoke is blowing black as coal. My hometowns are coming in sight. If you think I'm happy, you're right. 6 days on the road and I'm gonna make it home tonight.
The people of Memphis and Nashville haven't lost the Scots-Irish taste for talking tall.
Are you looking good all the way behind you?
The phrase, put the pedal to the metal, is a phrase that was used when CBs first came along as lingo for hammer down, put the pedal to the metal and come on. A concrete cowboy is someone that's just gets out there and he just hammers down. He's just a gear jammer. He's kind of a rawhider. A rawhider is someone that gouges on a truck, treats it rough. He doesn't care about how he gets the gears crossed up, or he's just rough on equipment, and they don't stay around long.
In the jargon of CB radio, truckers speeding in their rigs or rides are always on the lookout for police, whom they call bears and county mounties.
Or county mountie. A county mountie is more or less a county cop. Your state bear would be Smokey the Bear or Tijuana, Texas. A two-wheel motorcycle bear, we call him Evel Knievel.
When we say a bear does a flip-flop, we mean that he's turned and went, like, if he was going westbound, he has turned around and started back eastbound. And he's shooting radar.
Today, this Midland accent is spoken by Americans who have no trace of Scots or Irish in their blood. But it was the hard-driving Scots-Irish who spread it far and wide. Rooted in the Appalachian Mountains, influenced by English and German, its deepest source lies, as we've seen, in Northern Ireland and in lowland Scotland. Like a long list of American presidents, Buchanan, Polk, Johnson, McKinley, Jackson, Grant, Harrison, about 10% of today's Americans, some 22 million people, can claim Scots-Irish ancestry. These men were lowlanders, as we've seen, but there is another Scotland of misty glens and skirling bagpipes, stirring tartans and Highland games. And the men of the Highlands also had what Samuel Johnson called this epidemic of wandering. The Highlanders were Gaelic-speaking Celts who were scorned by the English and lowland Scots. James VI called them utterly barbarous. Since the 18th century, their language, Scottish Gaelic, has been driven almost to extinction. It survives on remote islands like Barra in the Outer Hebrides. Many inhabitants will be influenced by the English of the airwaves, but Scots Gaelic, or Gaelic, is still the language of the post office and the harbour master.
Hello, good morning. Bísteig Leo Yahok. Leo Yahok. Shell, but cheerio ma. Somebody inquiring what time the ferry would be in.
In Barra, English, which is spoken throughout the world, is still an alien language, and before the ferry, virtually unknown.
English is like a foreign language to me. Before I went to school, it was very little English we spoke at home. It was after we went to school that we learned the English. Now we've got a bit of English anyway, but it's mostly still Gaelic. Barra is a remote island. The ferry comes here 5 times a week from Oban, and it takes about 6 hours.
Wind and tide have kept Barra isolated, preserving its Gaelic traditions.
We get very bad weather, strong winds and rain. It's very open, as you can see.